Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for making the time to join us today. We're going to get started in a minute. So we're going to let some other people, join us in. Please settle down, grab a glass of water, whatever you like, and we'll get started here in a minute. All right, let's get started. We still have some people trickling in, but I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you again for taking the time to join us today. We're going to be talking about secrets from America's best staffing firms to work for. I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to a lively discussion on what it takes for staffing firms to successfully attract and retain internal employees, and then by extension, job seekers. And I'm especially excited because we're going to get insights from some of SIA's recently named best staffing firms to work for. But before we get started, a few housekeeping items. First of all, thank you again for making the time to join us today. We appreciate it. We absolutely love questions, so please feel free to ask us questions anytime. You can use the Q&A panel in the Zoom to send us questions. We will absolutely keep time for questions towards the end, but we might also take some relevant questions during the webinar. Also, this presentation and the recording from today would be shared afterwards, so please don't worry about taking any notes or screenshots. All of this content is going to be available to you. We'd rather you make this interactive for us and our panelists and actually ask us a lot of questions. Lastly, the webinar today is actually SHRM eligible. You see a poll right here. Please respond yes to the poll if you'd like to receive SHRM credits for the webinar. And if you do, our marketing team will take care of that. So we'll keep this poll up for about 20-30 seconds. All right, I'll start talking about the agenda. So in the agenda today, we're basically going to essentially learn from our panel. We're going to introduce the panel to you. And then we're going to talk about how can you navigate a competitive market, the one we are living in currently. How does one adapt to change? Obviously, things around you are changing pretty quickly. Comparing internal and external tactics, utilizing technology, and how to, towards becoming one of the best staffing firms to work for. And then lastly, getting some advice from our panelists. Like I said, we'll also keep some time for Q&A as well. All right, so with that, let's start talking about today's speakers. I'll go first and introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Pankaj. I am one of the founders of Sense, and before starting Sense, I ran recruiting companies and staffing companies for about 15 years. So I have been a lifer in this world and very much come from this world. All right, Candace, Chris, and Jessica, if you wouldn't mind turning on your videos and joining me. Thank you so much for doing that. So we have today along with me, Candace, who's the founder and CEO of Marvel Medical Staffing. Welcome, Candace.
Thank you.
Chris Sun. Chris is the president and COO of Unity Med. Chris, welcome.
Thank you.
And Jessica Wheeler, who's the district manager and manager of corporate services at Burnett Specialists. Jessica, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Now, I want to turn it back to our panelists to give us a little bit more of an introduction. So Candace, we'll start with you.
Hi, my name is Candace Clow. I'm the founder and CEO of Marvel Medical Staffing. I actually grew up in a very small town in Nebraska, so I am a Nebraska native. And then I went to college at Bellevue University here in Omaha on a scholarship for volleyball. And I went into business administration with an HR emphasis. So my background was sales and HR. And then I got introduced into medical staffing in 2016. And that is where I fell in love with it. So from there, that's where it kind of began. And then in 2019, pre-COVID, we launched Marvel Medical Staffing. We launched in the rehab therapy sector, and I think as everyone knows, that was non-essential at the time. So a lot of scary parts there, but now we are fully operating across all nations, or across the whole nation on all 50 states. And we include nursing, therapy, long-term care, home health, laboratory, cardio, and radiology. And we are also going to be adding in new layers, hopefully this year.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that, Candace. And I really love the story around how you pivoted around the pandemic. I've seen a few companies do that, and it's just, kudos to you to be able to do that, because I know a lot of our customers are actually looking to do that right now. So, if anybody has any questions around that, please feel free to ask Candace.
Absolutely. And
sorry, go ahead.
no, and one big thing, we are officially women-owned. So that was a huge part on being a diverse staffing agency in this sector.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations. All right, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Pankaj. Yes, I'm Chris Sund with Unity Med. I'm our president and COO. And my story is actually very similar to Candace. Also, I grew up in a really small town where I still live here today. My wife, she's a respiratory therapist, and growing up in a rural town and working at a rural hospital, we saw firsthand the struggles that it takes to get healthcare professionals. A lot of my friends and family, our kids have been delivered, by travelers, and most of our family, often that's who's taking care of us. And so had a really strong passion for making sure that no matter where you live in our country, that you're able to get the care you need. So with Unity Med, we are a full healthcare staffing company. We serve all 50 states in the nation. We do nursing, we do the long-term care segment and home health. We have laboratory, radiology, cardiopulmonary, and laboratory, and we also have an advanced practice division as well.
That's awesome. Thank you. Great story, Chris. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. And last but not the least, Jessica.
Hi, I am Jessica Wheeler, and I've been with Burnett for over 20 years. So we have a little bit different of a story. We've been in business for almost 50 years, and we don't really do healthcare, not nurses and things like that. But I did start at Burnett right out of college, and I've worked in various roles throughout the company. I currently manage over 20 professionals at our corporate office, including direct hire recruiters, temporary staffing managers, and our corporate accounting, marketing, and training divisions. In addition, I also oversee our eRecruit software system and all the vendor partnerships, integrations, and automations. Again, Burnett is celebrating our 50th anniversary next year, and we have both direct hire and contract recruiting focus with dedicated recruiting teams for accounting, supply chain, legal, HR, recruit, engineering, IT, administrative, call center, convention, light industrial. You're not hearing healthcare, but we do a lot of the other stuff. It's pretty much as one of our spiels is we don't do healthcare. So Candace and Chris can help you with that.
Well, it sounds like between the three of you, you guys cover everything. So
that's right. That's right.
So again, welcome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate all of you being here today and being willing to share some of your secret sauce, which obviously not everybody is willing to. So we really appreciate it. All right, before we jump into it, for those of you who don't know Sense, I'll give you guys a quick 1-minute primer on Sense. We started the company a little over 7 years ago with a singular focus. We wanted to build the first ever talent engagement platform that was designed specifically for the staffing industry. We've stayed very, very true to that mission. We today serve over 900 companies, every single one of which is a staffing firm. So, we've learned from essentially companies of all sizes and of all verticals. We also did some of the difficult stuff first. We built a lot of integrations. We built a lot of middleware and plumbing. And that proves now in the pudding, which is why 7 of the top 10 or these are the largest staffing companies in the US work with Sense, as do over a third of the largest staffing companies as recognized by SIA. These are the 225 firms in the US that have over $100 million in revenue. And, almost a fourth of them, almost a third of them now work with Sense. Now, when we started the company, it essentially stood on three pillars, and those three pillars are true even today: growth, retention, and automation. Growth is all about adding to your top line. How can we help you make more placements? How do we help you increase your top of the funnel, reactivate your candidates, so on and so forth, but actually help you make more placements that leads to more revenue. Retention is all about helping you make more money from the people you already have. Can we increase assignment durations? Can we redeploy them? Can we decrease your cost per hire because you're not really sourcing people all over again, you're only redeploying them, so on and so forth? Can we keep happier people with you so they will actually give you referrals and bring more people in? And that's retention. And then automation is all about taking busy work away from your recruiters. Anything that your company is doing, over and over again. In fact, our mantra is, if a recruiter is doing anything more than 5 times, you should be able to automate it. So some of our customers, including, these cutting edge folks that I have on the call today, you'll see here dozens, if not hundreds of journeys and automations to accomplish that. One last thing I would add is the common thread today from every customer is, how can Sense help us get more business? Which is interesting, because when we started the company 7 years ago, that was one of the biggest things I would lead conversations with, and everybody was like, I can get customers, don't worry about it, get me candidates. And now it seems like, the conversations shifted a little bit to, how can we get more customers? And there are a number of different ways Sense enables that. And, happy to talk about that, another time, or if that comes up during this discussion, I could sprinkle that in. Anyway, but enough about me and Sense. Let's, get to the meat of the conversation today and learn from our panelists. So we're here to ask them a few questions, and hopefully during those questions, uncover, a little bit of their secret sauce, go a little bit under the hood on what makes their company one of the best staffing firms to work for. All right. So with that, let me start with my first question. So, recruiting is still pretty competitive. I think all of you would agree, all of you would agree with that. On one hand, the demand for talent is more competitive than others. And on the other hand, 88% of hiring managers are expecting that hiring would be as difficult or even more difficult than 2022. So, recruiters are actually feeling the stress, from essentially trying to recruit all of these people, trying to fill the positions, so on and so forth, but also in client retention. So can we start with you, maybe Candace, and you can talk to us about, what, if anything, what are you guys doing to support your internal teams, making sure that they don't burn out and making sure that they can still navigate a competitive market?
That's a great question. I think right now too, COVID caused so many different dynamics, right, of how we do work, which a lot of that is great, right? The flexibility, but it really comes down to what is the culture that you're establishing in your organization. And, from small, very small, starting in the basement of our home to where we are now, that culture has shifted, right, as we've grown as an organization. And so the recruiting, Chris can attest to this too, in our industry is extremely competitive. But fundamentally, it is a healthy organization and what you bring to them internally and externally, right? Because we recruit on both ends. And the biggest is, what are our core values? Do they speak to our employees? Do we follow through with them? Do they have a voice? And providing them essential training and tools so they can be successful. So one of the biggest things that we're working on in 2023 is really driving to accountability and structure, and how that does play such a great part, both personally and professionally, and investing in tools for them so they see the next step. So succession planning, we just hired an amazing new HR director, and just creating those roadmaps from within. And then also with recruiting in a competitive market, There are so many opportunities in our Omaha community. So we're really driving our initiatives for recruitment through our DEI initiatives as well. What efforts are we making in our community to give opportunities? Because this is such an amazing career path, what we do, we impact lives. So as long as there are people out there, right, willing to learn, they feel invited into the culture, they feel represented, right? That's a key to create diversity and drive that through culture. That is a huge initiative. And then also our rehumanizing campaign, the health of our employees. And if they get too burnt out, right, they're not going to produce at the level that they need to. And so that's why too, you have to be very careful navigating a market where we are remote or hybrid, because sometimes they even tend to work too much. So what perks are you going to provide? Like we do unlimited DTO, right? Those things, great adults, great people on your team. They know how to manage and leverage their schedule to get their work done. And that has been such a crucial part as we navigate a completely different market.
I love that. I love that term you used, rehumanizing. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What exactly do you mean by that? And what do you do as part of that campaign?
That is a great question. So rehumanizing is actually part of our core values. And so Travis, my marketing manager, we really looked at how do we define that? And so rehumanizing, the way I created the definition is to cultivate and prioritize health and well-being of individuals and the organization, right? They have to be a healthy relationship and work hand in hand. And then bringing that not just to our internal team, but our external healthcare professionals. And rehumanizing to me with the shortages that we're seeing for the future of healthcare is how do we work with the systems to deploy for the future state? How do we educate our younger generation to get into healthcare? Everything that we do in this business is rehumanizing to me because we work with people, and mental health right now has been, man, it's increased significantly, all of those issues, and just providing them more resources. So again, I'll boast about our HR director all day. She is going to be a key piece in bringing in more of a progressive mental health like perk for our employees that isn't just a employee assistant program, because that's not where it starts. And another big thing too is, how do you talk about mental health and burnout as a leader? I am not afraid to say, I have a counselor myself, right? It's so healthy when you bring that and you can be vulnerable, because we have so many leaders that have now opened up and they're using performance coaching and other tools, and they just feel comfortable so they can be as healthy as they can in their work environment.
Thank you. That is amazing. I appreciate you sharing that, Candace. I mean, one of the things we did at Sense during the pandemic was we started this thing called a wellness day, and every single month we gave people one extra day off. Obviously super expensive for the company, right? I mean, if you think about it, 1 out of every 20 days is a holiday, which is 5% of, the company's revenue, if you will. But pretty much what that meant was that every single month, everybody had a 3-day weekend. So, to relax and to sort of recuperate. And it's probably been one of the most appreciated things, or appreciated perks, if you want to call it that, that people have talked about during our quarterly surveys and employee surveys and so on and so forth. So thank you for sharing that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Chris, I want to pivot over to you. I know you have a very strong foundation in your business because you guys are growing so quickly, which basically means, you must have systems in place to support your teams. What's your perspective on this?
Thank you for asking, and I absolutely love the idea you had about the extra day off a month. So kudos to you for implementing that. Yeah, we've had a lot of growth over the last year, which makes things really hard in a company. We grew about 700%.
Wow.
The year prior through last year, and when you're doing that, how do you maintain that sense of culture while growing there? And it really came down to enforcing our mission statements, our values, and making sure that that led through our decisions that we're going to make. And so, last year, a big part of what we were doing as our thematic goal is building a foundation that would make sure a company could impact the lives of millions of people. And to do that, that meant we had to have the right people as our foundation. And so, we spend a lot of time making sure that our talent is the right people. We had we looked in our HR system, and just to work internally in our company, we had 500 people apply in the last 2 months. Yeah, we only added 15 positions. We are not just hiring as many people as we can. In fact, less than 5% of the people that apply in, we're able to bring in. And the reason for that, though, is a career change is a major life choice. You spend more time at work than you usually get to spend, unfortunately, with your friends and family. And so recognizing that is one of the most important commitments as a company we can make to these people, is if they're going to dedicate that much time to us and our mission and our values, and we did everything we can to make sure they are the exact type of person we want to be working with. Now we, as our responsibility, roll up our sleeves and we make sure that we're giving them the best technology, the best training, the best tools to be the most successful version of themselves. And I think, when you say that, it's like, that doesn't mean we have this cool tool you come in, we get, or this perk, but it's also like, what are we doing to just make them better people? How are they a better parent or a better friend? And really stretching them from a development standpoint. So, and there's so many different things that, we can do, but, I'll take just within the last week or so, we went down to a building called the Heart Ministry Center. And the Heart Ministry Center, Omaha, per capita has more millionaires than any other place in our country. Probably thanks Warren Buffett for that. But we also, unfortunately, are on the other spectrum for homelessness, and a lot of stats I don't really want to get into, but you go to some parts of Omaha, and it's not that way. Finding accessible and affordable food and groceries is hard to do. And so luckily, Heart Ministry Center is a great place that allows people to feel like they get to shop a normal grocery store. And so we spent, the day there doing just that. And it's making sure we're doing that on a regular basis with all of our employees, that you gain just this whole different level of perspective on what we may think is a tough market or a tough day, or this is difficult, and realizing, oh man, it's really not that difficult after all. We should be very fortunate that we have the opportunity, that we get to make the difference we can. And this is why we're going to do that. And because you're on the team, we're going to make sure we're giving you these experiences and hopefully make you a better person.
I love that. Thank you. What a grounding experience that is. Thank you for sharing, Chris.
Absolutely.
And Jessica, lastly to you, as we just heard from you a minute ago, Burnett services a large range of verticals. Your internal employees, their needs are probably different. How do you support them?
So I think the biggest difference is actually that our company has been in business for over 50 years and our staff is very well tenured. The average tenure of our management team is 24 years and the overall average tenure of our entire company is 13 years.
Oh,
so we have a
wow.
lot of people who, like me, started at one stage in their life and now 15 to 20 years later are in a new stage in their life. We've had to adapt to the changing needs of our staff. Our company prides itself on being family first. Pre and post COVID, we've always offered flexibility for our employees. We, like Candace's company, we are women owned, and we actually have a large majority of women working at our company because we have such a strong family focus, and that's important to a lot of the women that work in our company. We were very blessed that because we were already set up for so many to work from home before COVID, it really helped us when COVID hit that our employees were ready. We didn't really skip a beat so much as a lot of, I've learned along the way of how other people really struggled. And we were very blessed to have always been ahead of the curve as far as technology and flexibility and things like that. We had also just rolled out a new software system just 3 months before COVID. And so that put us in a very good position. And it's always been an initiative of our company to stay ahead of the technology curve. And I think a lot of our employees are very grateful for that, because we do offer a lot of efficiencies and flexibility because of the way our company is set up. So it's very important to our staff. To me personally, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there are two really amazing things I picked up from that. I mean, one, it's amazing to hear about this tenure. Where I live in Silicon Valley, it's hard to find people who spend 1 year at a company, let alone 13. And
It's
second,
funny when you've been at a company for 20 years and you're still the baby, it's like, oh, but he's been here for 40. It's like, what?
Fair
And
enough.
we all still have the passion, which is great.
That's right. That's right. And the second thing, I couldn't agree more with the fact that technology is now the big differentiator, right? I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's going to have access to candidates, everybody's going to have access to customers. How efficiently are you matching the two, and how successful you're making your recruiters, sourcers, account managers, salespeople, everybody, but using technology is going to essentially be the big differentiator. But thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. Here are some of the key takeaways from what all of you guys just said. For our audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, but obviously you'll get all these takeaways, back in the slides, so I won't go read through them. I'd rather keep on, asking you guys more questions. So anyway, let's shift to a little bit of how the market is changing, and how you can adapt to change. I mean, we understand a little bit more about how you support your teams, but how much has changed since COVID? I mean, have you seen a shift in what talent expects internally, or is it the same? I mean, how is that a factor? And Chris, maybe we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, well, thanks for starting with me. Much different than Burnett and a little bit even Marvel, we launched at the tail end of COVID. So to say a huge shift, we really didn't see a lot of shift. Now, a lot of us, on the leadership team, we've been in this business for a long time, before launching Unity Med. So we do have a background of, what it was like. But regardless of the pandemic, much like I stated earlier, one of the biggest things we know is that our employees need to feel valued and appreciated. And it just circles back to, making sure we want our employees to be the best version of themselves. So we've from day one, I guess, offered flexibility. We have a hybrid schedule. We've people that live, right down the street, but they don't work in our office. We got people that work in many different states. So that was always there. Having honored PTO in that time for people to be there, once again, it's there. So it was more, if that is becoming more of the norm, once again, what are you doing differently to make sure that our internal talent wants to be here? And it really comes to, once again, making them the best version of themselves. And so it's those life experiences we talked about. We invest in an outside company, a couple of different ones, some that give leadership training. We do it on how to have tough conversations, conflict, as well as we have a life coach we work with that's available to our staff. So if they are going through something, and besides a therapist, or like Candace said, even an EAP program, sometimes you need more than that. Maybe they need somebody to help them with their financials. There's so many skills that even, a great therapist, psychologist, they're not trained on, but it could be making the difference in how their stress and lives are. And so we do, we work with a really amazing life coach as well that can give those type of helps. And then it's what can we do throughout the week? So like this week being a good example, we've had a lunch and learn yesterday, and tomorrow being Earth Week. do people know the right way to recycle, and what breaks down and what doesn't, and how can we, make sure we're doing our part of eliminating plastics or being better about using reusable materials. And so every month, every week, we're looking at what are we doing that doesn't just make us great at what we do, but once again, we're making them better people. So they're going to be a better parent, a better friend to everyone when they walk out of here. So I think really that employee development is crucial.
No, this is great. This is great, Chris. I mean, I can't tell you how closely you're speaking to me on this, because I live in San Francisco downtown, and we've interviewed people, we've interviewed talent that will come into our office and talk to us about, whether we have a recycling policy. I mean, people care about these things now, and you would have thought, people would only worry about how much money am I making, but everybody now has a value system that they want to make sure aligns with the value system of the company that they're going to work for.
Absolutely. It was a pretty proud moment right before we started this. So one of our employees came in and said, "This is a really odd question, but do you have a gym towel I can borrow or use?" And luckily we have a gym with a shower. And during the lunch break, a friendly competition broke out that I wasn't even aware of, to see who could collect the most trash around our office and fill the most bags of trash. So they hit their lunch by hitting the streets, and they came back, and you can tell they were working, because they're like, we actually have to hit the showers in the gym right now to get cleaned up after that. So
Wow.
it was a pretty proud moment to see them like, yeah, you can have all the towels or new shirts you guys need to change into.
That's awesome. And this life coach thing is probably the first I've heard of. So kudos to you guys on implementing something like that. Jessica, how about you? Give us what's going on at Burnett.
So how things shifted and changed. Well, we are very blessed with a very involved and experienced president. Sue has experienced it all, the ups and downs of our industry. And so we immediately regrouped and quickly adapted to the changes brought on by the pandemic. We assured our staff that we were in a good place. And so since COVID, we've really greatly increased our communication of our company's financial position. We actually hold monthly meetings. We have ours in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes now. And so we're going to have this meeting. We do it every single month to explain our financials, the economy, what we're seeing, what we should focus on. It's a company-wide meeting. Everybody gets on the call, and it's great. It's really helped not just the managers know what's going on with the company, but everybody knows. Sometimes the people at the top just assume, oh, everybody else knows what's going on, but they really don't. Not unless you pull them together and you can give them the update and answer any questions that they have. So we've done a much better job of doing that. We are an ESOP, which is an employee-owned company. So we do educate and empower our staff. Managers still guide the employees, but each owner can take action to improve our company. And so honestly, even before our ESOP, that's been the take that our president has always had. I remember when I first started, and I was just 22 years old, and I was right out of college. And I'd come to our president with an idea, and she's like, yeah, that's great. You should do it. I'm like, I've been here 3 months. You want me to do it? Oh, okay, sure. Great.
Right.
And to know that, everyone has a voice is really empowering. And so we really do try to push that, even more so now that we're in ESOP, and we've been in ESOP for about 10 years. So it's great.
Yeah. I mean, transparency of your financials, for example, and empowerment. I mean, those are probably magic mantras. I can't tell you, I mean, we do something similar. We do an all hands meeting every 2 weeks, and we're very open with our financials. And a lot of people remark that they've never seen that at another startup. Startups have very different financials, compared to professional services. But anyway, again, very close to my heart. All right, Candace, we're going to end with you. Tell us what's changing at your company. And, maybe you can also, you talked about this earlier, but you're also a women-owned firm. And maybe talk to us about how that plays into it.
Yeah, I could talk on that topic quite a bit. But we'll start with the COVID conversation. We started pre-COVID in the basement of our home. So we were still in the basement of our home when COVID hit. And we had tools to be remote, right? But we had a very, very small team. And we still had to manage effectively all those feelings and emotions. What's going on? You look back at it and you're like, wow, it just hit everybody. But what was unique for us and a struggle was I didn't feel launching anybody remote or growing, right? We had to stay pretty small during that time. Would be fair to another person we're hiring if we don't have foundational structures, pieces in place, or training to provide them, especially coming into this environment. So we had to shift so many things around, then get back into the office and follow CDC guidelines. And then also, COVID really impacted, the PTSD, right? There were so many viewpoints of vaccinations, right? Like there were so much, and in a business setting, you can imagine the anxiety or the stress that puts upon, and really cultivating, even with our leadership team, that a healthy organization, truly healthy organization, regardless of beliefs or, how they feel about vaccinations or how they felt about the COVID, that we all respect each other's different beliefs around it. So that was a lot to navigate through COVID. And now where we are current state, we are moving to a true hybrid policy with more remote opportunities because we have foundational software in place, foundational training. We just hired an amazing director over our sales training. So those pieces have really come together. But one thing too, we have to look at as well is, I don't know if you guys saw this, but the World Health Organization has observed a 25% increase in the global prevalence of anxiety and depression since 2021. Wow. So if you think about that, that's our workforce, that's our business. And so we need to make sure that we cultivate and understand, okay, we do have a situation with mental health. And so when you're looking at that balance, like you're seeing Amazon is now coming back into the office hybrid. We cannot lose that connection piece with our team in a remote setting, and making sure that they're still healthy in a remote setting. So that's one of those big things, right? We have to navigate not just now, but over time. What are the effects? How do we make this a system where we're meeting every single person's needs? Because equity is one of our core values. How is it equal for everyone to feel comfortable? So the other part of it, which is interesting to me, is that we are based, like we are ingrained from the minute we're born based off human connections. So if we miss that human connection element, with how we balance hybrid and remote, is that playing a part with our mental health of our employees? So for me, I'm a very physical. I want to be in front of someone, especially if I'm talking to them about a hard topic, so I can understand how to navigate their feelings and make them feel comfortable. So that's the part that's like, the biggest framework of navigating all of this through COVID. And I think that's been absolutely a massive shift with how do we navigate? How do we make this structure perfect? What do we do? And we have to remember too, the central philosophy consists on the fact that, in life, the aspects are reality, pain, inconsistency, and work. And how do we bring their mindset to those three factors to really embrace the process of navigating them so they feel like they are healthy, they are important, they have boundaries? That is the biggest part. So when we navigate through COVID, you look at, even our government and political views and an environment in work, we have to make sure it's very equitable and it's very safe through all these challenges and changes that we face, because a lot of people are facing anxiety and issues and worrisome. And to me, that's how you really embrace navigating through that, because we don't know if there'll ever be a future pandemic.
That's right. That's right. And sorry, talk to us a little bit about, the fact that you are minority certified and women certified. How does that play into it?
Oh, that's been an amazing part of it. I can't tell you, we see those discrepancies right now, especially for females in the executive side of business, and it's very small and we're making huge impacts. But I can't tell you enough times, even through my experience in the last 4 years, it's not easy as a female sometimes trying to, one, in this healthcare sector, really navigate, as truly one of the large, big female dominated organization. And what's been cool to see is I've seen not only males and females, right, transform and be empowered by that, but I've had leaders that have came to our organization and seen them transfer into this whole new person because they found this confidence that they felt like I gave them as a female, willing to get out there, willing to drive DEI initiatives, really trying to incorporate, hey, this is your team, this is your decision, give me ideas, feel confident. Because I can't tell you how many times, previously in other work environments, I was so scared to say something. I didn't know if I was smart enough. I don't know if I should say it. And really cultivating, have the confidence, right? Have the confidence within. And I think that is so, and I think that's so empowering if you can do that in your organization.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing that. I mean, again, like I said in the beginning, we talked to like 900 plus companies and DEI initiatives, just making sure you don't have bias in how you recruit people or even ask questions, or how your technology functions. I mean, how a chatbot asks questions is probably one of the biggest things that we hear about. But thank you again for sharing your perspective. In the interest of time, I won't read through all the key takeaways which our audience can. But let's move on to something that's probably on everybody's mind. So we've talked about how you guys are supporting your teams internally, but let's examine the relationship between internal talent needs and external recruiting for your clients. That's basically what pays the bills. So Jessica, maybe I'll start with you. What are some similarities and differences with your approaches to recruiting internal talent versus external talent?
So our strategic planning team has developed strong initiatives to ensure a positive candidate, client, and internal staff experience. One major benefit that our president started over 10 years ago that I brought up before was for our contractors and for internal staff is our employee stock ownership plan. Having our contractors eligible for this benefit is life-changing for many of them. One of the contractors sent our president and our ESOP committee a thank you email. And I mean, it brought tears to all of our eyes because she let us know she was able to bring her entire family in from her home country because of the stock distribution that she got. Just to give you some perspective, last year we paid over $4 million in stock contributions to our contractors and full-time staff. So you can imagine how many other hundreds of people, because there were about 315 people that were impacted by that $4 million. So there were large sums of money, and it was amazing to see how that impacts them. So it also just goes to show how generous our president is to give this gift to everyone that she impacts in her company. Anyone who works for her as a full-time employee or as the contract labor can participate in this program. And so it speaks to our culture. It's also an amazing benefit for all of our employees. So that's been a huge thing for us, and it's something we do for both. Another thing that we've done is supporting internal and external talent is increased communication. I talked about the financial communication that we increased, but we've majorly increased our communication thanks to Sense. And through many of the automations, we've increased our communication by phone, text, email, social media. People communicate in so many different ways. And so we are really tackling all of those different methods of communication to make sure that we are letting people know about all these different things. Not until, and I'm going to be honest, not until we implemented Sense a couple of years ago and we started blasting out more communication regarding our ESOP, we had so many people when we first started that initiative, not started the initiative 10 years ago, but started sending the communications out through Sense. We had people come back to us saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't even know there was this benefit, because you have to increase that communication. You can't tell someone something once. You have to tell it to them many times over or in a different communication method. They might need to have it via text. Maybe they're bombarded with emails and they want to see it via text, or they want to see it in a social media ad. So, that's been another thing, is us making sure that we're reaching people in all different ways, just to let them know, hey, these are all the benefits that you have. And Sense has definitely helped us with that. And I'm really appreciative of it. It's my baby. It's one of the things I personally manage myself. And I'm very proud of it. And I feel like I'm building new journeys and new communication methods out every single day. And so many people are coming back to me saying, thank you so much. This is so helpful. This is great. Or, oh, I never heard this before. Thank you for sending this message to me. So it's been really great. So I would say that those are probably the two biggest things, the communication and then our ESOP.
Thank you for sharing that. You certainly made my day. This is a story that I think everybody internally at Sense is going to love. And, it's pretty unique, I think, what you're doing with allowing all the contractors to be part of the ESOP plan. That's certainly not normal. I mean, if anything, there are companies where every single employee even doesn't get the equity, let alone contractors. So, kudos to you and Sue for certainly being ahead of your time. Candace, how about you? How do you guys approach external talent versus internal hires?
Well, so one thing that this year we've really started driving is our DEI initiatives. How are we getting in our community to recruit in those areas that may be underserved or underprivileged, right? You have to make those efforts to bring more talent from within and give more opportunities, because this is such a great industry. And back to the rehumanizing, right? That's part of it. We make an impact every day. And then externally with our healthcare professionals, how are we setting ourselves apart, right? How do, I think technology is a big part of that. How do we streamline those systems? But how do they feel a part of Marvel, although they're not here internally with us? So again, re-engaging culture, not just to represent, because we see a lot of culture being driven, especially in healthcare, only with their internal staff. But what are they doing for culture for their healthcare professionals? And so we've really started engaging into that and creating that synergy between the two. So our mental health initiatives, providing those not just for us, but our external, all our travelers, what topics for them what topics for them is causing issues? What do they need help with? That is a great way to do it. And then lastly, there's a huge disconnect when you look at, the diversification of our healthcare specialties. So we're starting to dive into that, because right now as a healthcare staffing agency, we have a moral and ethical responsibility to help deploy for the future. So we've got to work with our clients and say, okay, how do we get into high schools? How do we create education programs now for the future? And that is a huge way that you're driving external tactics to bring people to you, because that is passion, that is care. That is where we need to go in the same way internally.
Awesome. Thank you. Chris, okay, in the interest of time, bring us home. Tell us about, your approach on internal hires versus external in like 30 to 60 seconds.
Got it. Well, I'll keep it really simple. So, a big part of us is, as you probably gather, is we're medical staffing with heart. So every Friday, we invite our employees to take time to share a nomination as someone that's really made a difference and represents our core values, and to walk in front of the entire company. Everybody virtually is staring at the same screen. We can see every face of everyone virtually, to share those words. And I won't, because of time, I won't share a story, but give you an idea. Just one recently, Friday, sometimes my eyes are watering. I can't even talk, or even, to be honest, sometimes I don't look up, I stare at the carpet. Recently one of our employees lost her father, quickly. And so her nomination was to everyone that jumped right in, took everything from her, made sure that she didn't have to think about work even for a second, and all those that reached out to wrap their arms around her as well. And those type of things, we wouldn't know that even happened, or had we not taken the time to just take a minute to make sure that we're telling everyone about these unsung heroes, these people that are doing things that really are making a difference. So what are we gonna do for external? We do the same thing, and we do an hour of gratitude. And every Friday, we do the exact same thing for our travelers, our clients, our business partners. It is important that we take that time to tell them how much we care about each and every one.
Thanks for that reminder. We're all in it together, for sure. All right, one more question for all of you, which is obviously one of the questions that is closest to my heart. When I was talking to each one of you before this webinar, the topic of technology came up a lot, on how technology has become a big differentiator, how it helps you deliver better experiences for internal hires, external hires, so on and so forth. So if you can all take like a minute or so each and talk about how this is impacting your world. Candace, maybe we'll start with you.
I will try to talk really fast. So technology, first of all, thank you to Sense. We love the partnership. You guys have been amazing. So you played a huge role with streamlining, getting more communication, and being more efficient for our healthcare professionals and for us internally. So technology has been a huge buzz, especially in 2 years. When I got into the industry, I thought it was so far behind. So there was so much more room for advancement. But one thing we have to do is we have to be very careful with what technology is doing. Again, our basic instinct is human connection, and technology can streamline. There's so many aspects of positivities that come out of technology. We just have to be careful with how we use that. So that's a big topic, I think, of discussion. And one thing technology can't do, right, that we need to provide for our healthcare facilities and our healthcare professionals is have a heartful, meaningful conversation to help them navigate through. So like myself, I go to Amazon. We talk about the Amazon, right? I click on different things. I might put stuff into my cart, but then I don't move forward. Well, why? We need to know why they didn't. And then that way we don't miss a disconnect with a facility getting a great healthcare professional and combining them together. And then for me, recruitment, we have to qualify our candidates for our healthcare facilities. It is so key to qualify, because if we're not understanding, even their core values, like how do we know if they're going to connect just through a system? And we need to streamline that for them. So that's the biggest part, is using tech wisely to streamline, be more effective, be more efficient, but never forgetting the rehumanizing is what we say, and connecting with our clients and professionals.
Got it. Thank you. Chris, what's your take on it?
Yeah, we absolutely love technology here at Unity Med. And, a lot of times people think, is technology going to replace, the recruitments? And, we are not looking to create robots to take our positions. However, I like to tell is that we use technology to turn our employees into superheroes. And I love to compare it to Iron Man. At the end of the day, our employees are using this technology to be faster, stronger, to be able to get their work done way more efficiently, but it's driven with their hearts and their minds. And so we are using that to make sure that we have more time to focus on things that matter, as Candace says. And it's a human aspect, the birthdays, the anniversaries, understanding that I'm not going to allow a computer to maybe hire somebody here because I need to know if they fit our culture, but I can use it to streamline and turn 200 resumes and sift through them to make sure I can find the top ones. And so I think it's just marrying that with the human. And I gotta be honest, Sense is one of our favorite technologies here because it has done just that.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, you're very much speaking our language. This is essentially what we talk about here. 60 to 70% of what every recruiter does, unfortunately, I guess, is something that can be automated. And if we do that, it actually gives them more time to talk to either a candidate or a customer and actually have more human conversations on why they should be working together.
Absolutely.
All right, Jessica, over to you. And I know you actually manage Sense and manage a lot of technology, so I'm curious about your take as well.
Yes. And Chris, I am absolutely stealing the use technology to turn recruiters into superheroes. Cannot wait to go back and use that at the office because I am the big technology person, but I also manage a lot of recruiters, both contract and direct hire. And so I'm really going to use that. I think most of my direct reports are very much in that as well. Automations have absolutely freed up some of the time that the recruiters were using to ensure the candidates and clients were getting all of the information that they want and need. And it allows them to really focus on what their core competencies are. And so when we first started with Sense, we had an idea of what automations we wanted to build. Luckily, our salesperson was very gracious, and the people who worked with our implementation, they helped me because they've even done things that are a little bit out of the box, not necessarily just on the candidate side. Y'all helped me build a whole collections process for our accounting department, which it took a bit of setup, but once it got set up, it's so nice because during COVID, we did slim down on our accounting team. And so it allows them, even not just the recruiters, but even our accounting team, to be able to really focus on the things that need a personal touch and not necessarily just the, hey, did you get your invoice? And, did it look the way you wanted it to look and things like that. So that's what we first started with. And then recently I've been able to individual recruiters and ask them personally, like, hey, what do you need? And we've been building, and that's what I've been doing this past week actually, is I've built these automations and journeys for even just one recruiter, which seems really crazy. But then the word gets out in a completely different way. Then we have other people saying, hey, Molly has this. How do I get that? And then they're coming to me instead of me pushing it on them. They're coming to me saying, hey, can I get that too? I really like that. That's a great idea. So technology has been absolutely amazing. I'm always looking for new ideas of what other people are doing. Anyone who's on here, I love best practices groups. And so I'm always trying to establish connections where we can talk about things that you're doing right, things that I'm doing right. I feel that just like this webinar, it makes us all better. And so I know I'm talking too much, so I'll stop. But I love technology and it's been great for us.
No, this is great. This is great. Thank you. Okay, we have about 2 minutes left, so I'm going to ask you guys to spend 30 seconds each on this question. But, this is probably something everybody wants to hear from you guys. You are all winners. What's one thing every staffing firm can do to be a best place to work?
All right. Well, I'm going to make it quick, but I have to say thank you to Jessica and Candace. I love the ideas and everything you brought, and Pankaj for even inviting. I'm going to just say you have to invest in your culture. We have well over 100 internal employees, and when we had 25 employees before, I had an HR leader and compliance leader. Most of us were wearing like 10 different hats, and everyone was doing a little of everything. We hired as one of the first key leadership decisions the director of culture. And we made sure that if we're going to say we're all about our employees and making them the best people we can, then we got to show that and make sure we're putting that investment. And I tell you what, when people come up and they say their favorite parts of this place, it's not the perks and everything else. It's remembering the birthdays, it's wrapping your arms around them during those milestones. Those are those memories that don't happen sitting in front of a desk. Those memories are hands down, I think, the best investment you can do. They're going to take that for the rest of their life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica.
I actually looked at our survey results, and the most overwhelming response is that at Burnett, we care. From our president to managers to coworkers, we care about one another. We're passionate about people. We're family oriented. We love to work together. Our leadership truly cares. And when you have passionate employees who want to come to work and want your company to be successful, the productivity and profitability are also going to be driven up. It's interesting that the most notable characteristics of our company passion that the people have for what they do and who they work with. So
Awesome. All right, Candace, rapid fire.
Rapid fire, and a thank you to Chris and Jessica, to Sense for hosting this. But it comes down to making sure you have a healthy mindset, a healthy organization. They feel like they're cared about. They feel that we're listening, we're providing feedback. And a lot of times the biggest thing is they need to know there's succession planning, there's a roadmap, there's opportunities from within. And most importantly, if what you do every day creates an impact on someone and you drive that home, which what we do in healthcare, we are making an impact because we're indirectly potentially saving lives. That is at the core, and you just have to drive that, remind your team that. And most importantly, I'm here every day, be present. You cannot help or be a part of your team if you're not driving that from the top down.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And, thank you to our audience for sticking on. I think most of you who started this webinar are still on here, and I can see why. Thank you to our panelists for sharing, some of your secrets. I mean, being so open about how you run your businesses, and hopefully it helps everybody. You can see everybody's LinkedIn profiles here. If you want to connect with folks, or if you have any questions, you're obviously welcome to reach out to us directly if you like more information about anything. But once again, Candace, Chris, Jessica, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it.
thank you.
Thanks for having us here.
Thank you so much.